Welcome back to Radio Faces at our HCC Main Street studios. I'm John McClain from the Chronicle, Chron.com, Sports Radio 610. He's Indy Kalu, 12-year NFL veteran, works for Sports Radio 610. This is where we go around the league, and there's a lot of shakeups on the Black Monday, and Raheem Morris and the Buccaneers were one of the first. 1 year after finishing 10-6, Raheem Morris was fired. What do you think about that?
You know, I think it was the right call. And I hate to see somebody lose their job, but it's part of the business, part of the NFL. Players get cut, coaches get fired. And I think where it all started for Raheem Morris, just last year they had a good year, 10-6. People were saying it was because they had an easy schedule. And I feel like they were just going in expecting to have the same success without working towards it. And Raheem Morris, when he kicked Brian Price out of the game, that's when he lost his team. Now, things were going bad up until that point, so I'm not going to just blame that one act on why the team had the downfall that they had, but I believe that's where he lost his team, because when you look at Brian Price, when you talk to his teammates, when you talk to people that have played with him, whether it be college, pros, he's not that guy. He's not that bad guy. He's not that cancer in the locker room. He made a dumb mistake on a play, and you kicked him out of the game. You cannot do that if you're the leader of a team, if you're the head coach. That's where he lost the team. That's where guys gave up on him, and they could care less about saving his job, as you saw with the Houston Texans last year when things were going pretty bad for them. You saw how tough they fought, how tough they played for Coach Kubiak. He didn't get that same respect. The question is now, when they bring in a new coach, are they also going to bring in a new quarterback? I believe Josh Freeman is a good young talent, but he regressed from last year, threw more interceptions than touchdowns, and he just didn't seem to have that it factor that he had the year before. Do you get rid of him? Absolutely not. It's too hard to find a good quarterback. But do you bring in competition? I say yes, because it's going to breed success, whether it's from Josh Freeman or the guy competing to take his spot. That's a tough decision that somebody's going to have to make.
They went with Raheem Morris, who'd never been a coordinator. Now there's talk they can only get a young guy to come in there under these circumstances. But there's also talk in Tampa and Jacksonville, Mike Sherman might have a shot at one or both of those jobs. I think it'd be pretty cool to get Mike back in there. Now, Cam Newton just had the greatest season of any rookie quarterback. If we had to pick one team going into next year, it's not in the playoffs, that could make a huge turnaround and be a Super Bowl contender, do we both agree it'd probably be Carolina?
It'll probably be Carolina, and I think Carolina is in the same position the Texans were last year, where they could go into this draft drafting all defensive players. That's what they need. Their defense was pretty bad. That's why I don't think they made it to the playoffs, with the exception of the way Cam Newton played. So, yes, this is a team that if they take care of business in the offseason, they add those veterans, they add those young pieces on defense, then you might see them go into the playoffs. But I think the big question mark now is, what is Cam Newton going to do with this success? During the offseason, are we going to be reading about a bunch of parties hosted by Cam Newton, or is he going to do what Peyton Manning does and get in that film room, study his butt off, lock himself in a cave, and become a better cerebral player? You could always get better, and you just want to know what path is he going to take. If he takes the Peyton Manning type path, he's going to be a star for a long time to come.
I bet he hopes he doesn't lose his offensive coordinator and quarterback coach,
right,
ROG Seeds, but he's a hot property right now because of the fabulous job he's done with Cam Newton. It was just unbelievable. Now, 3 quarterbacks throw for more than 5,000 yards. Drew Brees shatters Marino's record of 5,084. Brady beat it. Stafford's at 5. Eli Manning's almost at 5. You have a theory about this. Tell the viewers about it.
It's a conspiracy theory. They're trying to shut down the defensive game in the NFL, because we all know offense sells tickets. Offense puts people in the stands. That's a tongue twister right there. But when you look at the fact that you have 2 tight ends who broke Kellen Winslow's single-season record in the same year, when you have 3 quarterbacks throwing for over 5,000 yards, you're starting to feel the effects of all the flags being thrown against defensive players. When you just barely touch somebody on offense, they throw the yellow flag. When you get too close to the quarterback, they throw the yellow flag. And I think that's why you're seeing all these records are being broken. These are great players. Tom Brady, Hall of Fame. Drew Brees, Hall of Fame. Matthew Stafford will wait, but if he continues to do what he's doing, Hall of Fame. So these are great players, but there's a reason why all these records are falling simultaneously. It's because of the way they're calling the defensive game.
I sure hope the NFL does not end up like the Alamo Bowl with Baylor and Washington, which had a basketball score with no defense, but sometimes I think that's where it headed. 5 games on the last weekend had at least 45 points. That was unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. And again, defensive players don't know how to play anymore. J.J. Watt, when you go back to the Indianapolis Colts game, that last drive where they scored the winning touchdown, he had 2 phantom penalties, and all I can say is he was being aggressive. And how do you tell somebody not to be aggressive?
Okay, Tim Tebow, playoffs. They lose 3 in a row. They're hosting Pittsburgh, a perennial playoff team, Super Bowl, a lot of Super Bowl players on that team. Will he lose 4 in a row to close the season? If he does, what do they do about a quarterback? Is he still going to be the guy?
Well, I think he's still on the roster, but if he loses this game, if he doesn't have a big game, you absolutely have to bring in somebody and compete. For whatever reason, the NFL, they're afraid of competition when it comes to the quarterback position. They're afraid that they're going to hurt somebody's feelings. I think John Elway is going to change that. They do need to bring in somebody, but I will say Tim Tebow has done enough to be in that fight, to be in that fight in the offseason, to be in that fight during training camp. The question is, do you bring in a similar style quarterback as Tim Tebow so you could keep the same system in as they compete, or do you bring in the traditional pocket passer? That's the only question that John Elway and co will be able to answer. But even if he has a good game, you definitely have to bring in somebody to compete against him because he's just not the traditional quarterback. He's a great football player, though.
The biggest surprise of Black Monday, the Polians, both of them, Bill and his son Chris. Chris had been running the show more than Bill had, but Bill was still there. Bill's the one that drafted Peyton Manning. He's one of the greatest in history. I believe Bill Polian will be voted to the Hall of Fame. But Jim Irsay, the owner, got rid of both, kept Jim Caldwell, and he wants to hire the general manager first. Do you think this means Peyton stays, goes? How does it have to do with Andrew Luck? Does it have anything to do with that? Because one theory I read was that Polian had told Irsay, I want Peyton traded. And Irsay loves Peyton and doesn't want to trade him. What do you think?
Well, first of all, how can you not really like Peyton Manning if you're the owner of the Colts and what he's done for your franchise? I don't know what this means. I don't believe Jim Caldwell stays. I think that he's going to hire a GM, and the GM will make that decision. But I'm not as surprised as everybody else. When you have the type of season that the Colts had this year, and you point to one player who plays one position and say that's the reason, that means the team wasn't built for success. It means the team was built around one person, and you can't do that in the NFL. Maybe in basketball where the injuries don't occur as much as in the NFL, but that's just something that I believe you have to send a message. I don't want my team to be built around one player, and if that's what you're going to do and that player is out and we hit rock bottom, everybody has to go. I like the move by Jim Irsay.
After each of your 12 seasons, Indy, you had, whether it was a playoff season or not, you went in on Monday, you cleaned out your locker for the off season. The media is there to interview you and other players about the season and the off season. The Jets, I think, made total fools of themselves. They imploded in the loss to Miami when they had the shot at the playoffs. And then when the players went to clean out their lockers, Bart Scott's giving a finger, yelling 2 words at a photographer. Players are getting escorted out of the building. What do you think about the way they imploded at the end with their captain being pulled on the last series, like Santonio Holmes not even watching the game on the sideline when they could have won? What do you think about the implosion of the Jets? What does it mean and where does it go?
Just to make sure I answer that correctly, what 2 words did Bart Scott yell at?
Well, the second one was you. I think a Rice grad could figure out the first one.
Well, I'll tell you what, those are called the exit interviews. And unless you win the Super Bowl, every team is going to have a hard day with the exit interview. So what I'm saying is just like you mentioned, and you said it right on, at the end of the season, you go in, you clean out your locker, you talk to your coaches, and then you make yourself available for the media so they can do their jobs. You know, when things are good, the media is going to praise you. When things are bad, they're going to be critical. That's just something you know as a football player. So after that last loss for the New York Jets to act the way they did, it goes back to the culture. Ryan had the culture, and he set the stage for that. But again, these players are grown men. They need to understand that, and they embarrass themselves. They don't realize that, yes, as an NFL football player, your most important job is what you do on the field, but handling the media, presenting yourself to the public, that's part of the job. That's why you make hundreds of thousands of dollars, up to millions of dollars a year. So you have to handle it better, and you have to be a man. And as far as Santonio Holmes, your captain, sitting on the bench, not even watching the last drive that could win the game and get you in the playoffs, that just means they did a horrible job choosing a captain. I think they need to send a message. I believe he's guaranteed $7 million next year, so it's hard to cut somebody with that cap. But I bring in some other receivers, and I let them have a real chance of beating them out.
Do you think Rex Ryan needs to change his tactics and quit predicting the Super Bowl every year and just maybe put a lid on it and focus on football?
Oh, he has to now. If he comes in the offseason and says we're going to the Super Bowl for next year, if I'm the owner, I said, man, you either need to shut up or I'm going to fire you, because if he doesn't make the playoffs next year, he might stand to be fired.